My name is Peter de Maegd. I am a producer based in Brussels. I'm glad to come to Vilnius today and talk to you about what we are trying to do with our company, which is focused on storytelling. So my background is in film production. But as you probably all know, there's quite a fundamental paradigm shift in our industry happening, and it is exactly what we are sinking our teeth in. Now, when talking about the paradigm shift, I think it's always important, even though we're not really related to coal and oil, I think it's really important when we talk about the paradigm shift in our industry, so in the media industry, that we need to see it in the broader context of society. And I was happy to hear Martin Cooper. I don't know who of you were present at his keynote, but he also mentioned the fact that in the next 2 generations, there's going to be a very fundamental shift from thinking hierarchical towards thinking networked. And this is in fact also the era that we are in, because we had the first industrial revolution with coal. We had the second industrial revolution. So the first one was based on coal, a new source of energy, fossil energy, combined with print. So that was the new industrial way of communicating, combined with a new source of energy. And those two new forces created the first industrial revolution, because the means of communication organized the new power that is available. So that's the 19th century. In the 20th century, we had the second industrial revolution with oil, combined with the electronic communication, meaning radio, telephone, television, cinema. Now, the third industrial revolution where we are today is where you have renewable energy combined with the internet. And there's a very fundamental difference here, because the first two are hierarchical. I mean, no one here has an oil well, I guess. No one here has a coal mine. No one here has their own TV broadcast channel, at least not on their own. And probably no one has a big industrial printing press at home. This is very different in the third industrial revolution. Solar panels are available. Maybe some of you have them on their own roof. A lot of you already have them on different devices like calculators or whatever. And another thing is that the internet, you can use your phone or a camera like that. It's not that expensive. You can record and you can distribute, and you don't need a big industrial complex for this. So this is a really fundamental difference with the previous 2 revolutions, is that this revolution is networked. So in a way, it's more democratic also. So we look at this, on the one hand, with a hierarchical structure, which is top-down, a big industrial complex, but on the other hand, a networked structure with peers. So a peer-to-peer network with some people who have more authority because of their knowledge and because of their connectivity, but they do not have power over someone else. I think in the context of our media industry, one of the best-known peer-to-peer networks is, of course, YouTube. But I think these 2 covers of Time magazine sum up in the best way the fact that this peer-to-peer network, this networked economy, is becoming more and more powerful. In 2006, the person of the year was you, not you as in a media professional, but you as in, well, a media consumer, prosumer. And also 2011, the protester. So people organizing themselves, protesting against certain hierarchical regimes. So the thing is that this change is not only relevant for our media industry, it's also a general cultural change, it's a technological change, and it's a political change. So what does this paradigm shift mean for the media industry? In general, we speak about old and new media, because that's how we experience it. First there was a TV and then there was a smartphone. But I don't think that's a really good way to capture the division. And maybe also let's look at some other paradigm shifts from the past. Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, released 1960. It was at the time that cinema also needed a paradigm shift, because it was competing with this technology, television. So it was a black and white movie, But the fundamental shift, the fundamental change that Hitchcock introduced was that people were not allowed to enter the theater once the movie had started. Before that, people walked in and out of the movie like that. When you're watching a film at home, you can also walk in and out. Today, if you do that in a cinema, people don't really appreciate it. It's a paradigm shift, and it made the film into one of the biggest box office successes ever. Another paradigm shift was the Blair Witch Project. Is this known? Do you know this project? It's like it's officially, so to speak, the first viral movie, or let's say the first movie with a viral campaign. That was '99 when computers looked like this. The interesting thing is when you talk to the guys who made the movie, the producers, they were editing the film, and it was just like a low-budget movie. Found footage wasn't even a known genre back then. And what happened is that there was this assistant coming in, this trainee, saying like, "Hey, yo, guys, there's this strange thing on the internet. People are spreading this rumor, or there's some confusion that our story is real. You know, send out a message or an email or whatever, publish something to, you know, state the fact that this is a fiction." And they were like, "Yeah, but wait a minute, maybe we can do something interesting. Maybe we can feed that rumor and, you know, create a buzz around it." And so in fact, what happened with these guys, they didn't come up with this genius marketing plan to, you know, create one of the biggest online buzzes in the 90s. They simply saw an opportunity and took it. They simply started to feed that network of rumors. Another interesting example, I think, is Twilight, a very known IP, based on books with a big fan base, followed by the movies, etc. There was a lot of fan fiction written about it. And does anyone know what the connection is between Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey? Anyone knows the story? I hear a yes there. So, in fact, what happens is that 50 Shades of Grey was originally written as fan fiction of a sadomasochist relationship between the main characters here of Twilight. But the problem was that the fans of Twilight did not like the fact that, you know, they had sadomasochistic sex. So the writers, he changed the character from a vampire to a multimillionaire. So now you have 50 Shades of Grey. So it is yet another example of how something that comes from this part, a movie, that is then used by someone in the network, so fan fiction, and it picks up momentum there, and it becomes very important again in the hierarchical structure. So this is in fact a mechanism that we will be looking at, or that I analyze all projects that we do or that we get involved in. That is really the two angles we look at and how we try to really connect them. Is on one hand you have the mass media, which is the media of the 20th century, which is the one that I grew up in, so to speak. Also what I do as a main business, in the sense that I've produced over 10 feature films, so that's where I come from. But I also started to notice through different smaller and bigger projects that there is an enormous potential in this personal media. Because anyone here can take a picture which has the potential, or a movie which has the potential to reach millions, an audience of millions. And that's where the potential lies. And the problem is that this thing, do we see it as an opportunity or a threat? Because I don't know if you know this graph, but this is 60 seconds online. 60 seconds online. So Facebook, 60 seconds or 1 minute of Facebook, 350 gigabytes of data is uploaded. 350 gigabytes. An illegally downloaded movie is something between 1 and 1.5 gigabytes. So that's 300 movies that per minute are uploaded. You know these numbers, you're familiar with it. The numbers themselves are almost abstract. But the point is, and this is a line from a quote from Henry Jenkins, who came up with going to the expression of the media convergence. He says the media is increasingly dependent on the active and committed consumer to spread the word about valuable property in an overcrowded marketplace. I think anyone here who has published anything anywhere feels that it is very difficult to find your audience. And so that's the challenge you have, how to stand out in an overcrowded marketplace. What does this marketplace look like? And why connect to that active audience? This is a graph, quite an interesting graph, showing the age profile of home video buyers. So home video is all content you consume at home, so not including cinemas. The physical video, so this part, is DVDs mainly. Digital videos is iTunes, whatever VOD platform you have here, not illegal, okay? Now, the interesting thing is that of the physical video, only 40% is less than 35 years old, okay? So from all DVDs sold, 60% is sold to 35 plus audience. If we look at digital video, 70% of the videos, of the content, so series and films or whatever, 70% is consumed by minus 35 audience, and only 30% plus 35. So that is really important to bear in mind, because you see how that will evolve in the next decade. The distribution of our content will be more and more digital. I'll come to that on how exactly we can benefit from this, because we do not just need to see this as just a different platform. The nature of this business is fundamentally different. We'll show that based on this graph. This is the world box office of 2012. So all cinema tickets sold worldwide in 2012 amounted to a staggering $40 billion, okay? Now, what is most shocking about this number is that 50% of these tickets, 50% are sold to about 40 movies of the 7 US majors, each with a budget of about $100 to $125 million. So the blockbusters. So 50% is taken by the blockbusters. 30% is taken by about 100 movies with an average budget of about 30 million. Okay, think Wes Anderson movies, the films that are selected in the Cannes Film Festival, that you know, that kind of movies. Often also the Oscar-nominated movies, they end up here. Only 20% goes to the over 1,500 movies with a budget of less than 10 million euros. Okay, what does this mean when you look at this in another perspective? Does anyone know the Longtail Perspective, what it means? Familiar with it? You can explain? Okay. Simply put, the Longtail Perspective, the Longtail, which looks like this, is where you have on this side a high demand, there's a low demand, and this is other products. So there's a high demand for blockbusters. There's a few products, only 40, but there's a very high demand. Now, European cinema is in here. There's many products, and there's in fact low demand. We need to be realistic about it. We are in that 20% market share with over 1,500 movies. Well, not 1,500 European movies. And of course, there are exceptions. When you look at the Latvian market, there's the movie, for example, Redirected, which in a way ends up here. But on a European market, sorry to say, it's here. Okay? But what can we do about it? So again, high demand, few products, low demand, many products. Now to come back to the difference between physical video and digital video, when I live in Brussels, and if, let's say in the 90s, I would go to the videotheque to look for Redirected because I heard about this movie. Now, the video owner, he only has place in his shop for, let's say, 500 titles, because he needs to optimize the shelf space. Each square foot comes to a cost. Now, if you compare this with video online, so with the VOD platforms, with iTunes, etc., the shelf space is near zero. The cost to distribute it is near zero. So this means that there's a high potential here to reach a new audience. So Redirected, when it sits over here on the European market at this spot, In the past, for me, it would be close to impossible to get it unless I write to some distributor here in Lithuania who sends it to me off with the post. Today, if I just tweet that I saw the movie and I like it, maybe some of my followers pick it up and you create a momentum. That momentum doesn't cost anything to create, but the opportunity is there and it creates a new audience. So that's where the opportunity lies for European cinema or for anyone who creates content. Now, to come back to the different characteristics between that physical video, or let me say the analog world, and on the other hand, the internet, the digital world. So on the one hand, the mass media and the personal media. Oh, it's cut off there. The thing is that in that 20th century world, the cost of production in the mass media is very high, while in the personal media, it is close to zero. Making a movie, students can make a movie today of 90 minutes just with a camera like that, which costs, what is it, 2,000 euros? It's not zero, but it's close to zero compared to the big 35 millimeters machines that we used to use until about a decade ago. The recording is digital, it's not 35 millimeter. So suddenly there's a fundamental difference in the nature of the content produced in the mass media compared to the personal media. Now, the question is, how do these two powers meet? Is it a confrontational way, like piracy versus the music industry versus Hollywood, versus us? Or is there a more beautiful form that they meet? Personally, I'm not there yet. I'm more here. It's like connecting to the potential of the internet feels a bit like embracing a tiger. And to put it more clearly, what we are trying to do, to go back to this one, in fact, I would say that the white line there, the Siberian tiger, that's like the engaged audience. That's the ones who you try to engage. So what we're trying to do, in fact, media convergence, is the connection, creating the connection between the mass media and the personal media, and create a feedback loop between them. So the challenge is, what do you as a storyteller, what is your position in this new paradigm? That's the paradigm shift, taking the benefit of this conflict, taking the benefit of these two powers that meet. And in fact, the being challenged as a storyteller by a new technology, that also happened just over a century ago. Anyone recognizes this? It's one of the first movies, it's the arrival of a train. And in fact, the distribution model of this film was the fact that it was shown at fairs and people paid not to tell a story, because the story here is people getting on and off a train. But the thing is that people paid to see the new technology, moving image. Okay? The interesting thing also about this movie is that you probably know the story that when this was first shown, the audience was so excited because the train was running towards them that they ran out of the cinemas. The thing is that there's no historical proof of that story. It's just an urban legend. It's, by the way, a good example of how fiction and reality, blur. Anyway, this is 1895. This is 1905, so 10 years later. What we discover is a film. Okay, it's shot on 35. We see a set, we see actors, we see action, pow, pow, pow. But look at the eyes. Oh my God, like hands up in the air. This is like, the interesting thing is also the camera does not move. The only effect you see, cinematographic effect, is the rolling screen in the back. That's in fact also something that was used in theater. So what you see here is in fact vaudeville theater, but distributed through the new technology of cinema. So instead of having an audience and the actors and the stage, you have the audience, and the only thing that I as a producer or distributor have to organize is the movement of the 35 millimeter print and the projector. So suddenly the innovation does not lie here in the way the story is told, but in the way it is distributed. Okay? So we go from, wow, cool, a new technology, to, wow, cool, a new distribution model, to a new form of storytelling. Okay? So suddenly this camera starts to move. It gets close, it gets far, we edit, and suddenly we discover that people can die in a much more dramatic way than just throwing their hands up in the air. Okay? What was discovered here was cinematography, that this new language of, this new technology had its own story language. Okay? So it took over more than a generation, it took close to 2 generations of artists and of filmmakers to develop cinematography, to develop the language of this new technology. So in fact, in the 20th century, we discovered that there are very specific rules to how you look at an image projected on a screen, projected or on your TV or even on your smartphone. Okay? When you look at a moving image with sound, it has a certain meaning. It has a certain very particular aspect to it. Editing is quintessential to audiovisual language. It does not exist in real life. That's why this actor, who always has the same expression on his face, we read something different because of the image that is shown afterwards. That's the Kuleshov effect. I think many of you know it. But there's an interesting thing I saw about a year ago. It's this one. Just as a joke, I call it Kuleshov effect 2.0. Anyone recognizes it? Okay, maybe with some sound. Who has seen this? Anyone? Come on. Don't be shy. Anyway, you get the picture. Okay. It's a Harlem Shake effect. Has anyone done it here? I see some hands shaking there. Anyway, the point is that suddenly you get 2 shots, and on their own, it's like, what the hell is this? I mean, but it has a context, okay? And there's a meme, a meme around it. You know, we also saw it with, you remember that one, the Gangman style, the silly dance? And this is also how they grew. Now, let's be honest, I mean, these are very exceptional examples. And the way they grew, you know, there's things about it, but we're not going to do a case study of it. It's just to show the potential and the fact that seeing those 2 images together, we understand them in a very different way because we know the context around it. And that context is what we have, well, we were informed through it by the social media, by the fact that we were connected, okay? So that's the key thing here. That's where the different lies. On the one hand, you have the 20th century where we developed the language of cinematography, cinema, and of course TV, etc., etc. This era, 21st century, is about the interface. It's the number one interface for storytelling of the 20th century was cinema. Today it is the interface. It's all the media together. Now, our strategy to benefit from this opportunity, our strategy to connect to this audience is in fact pretty simple. We do embrace them, although it's sometimes a bit, how should I say, stressful. So, because, you know, a tiger is a bit unpredictable. So what we try to do is we try to develop the tools and the techniques to really steer that force of the engaged audience, okay, the active audience. But never forget that the majority of the audience is passive, okay? There's only, let's say, a couple of thousand people who made the Harlem Shake, who produced it, but there's millions who consumed it and shared it, okay? And so what we need to do is look at our content, look at our stories, and see how we can create a feedback loop, okay? That's the role of the storyteller in the 21st century. Our role is to create a conversation. That is the strategy, okay? So the strategy of whatever we do is to create a conversation. The tactical implementation of this strategy can take many forms. Games, apps, LARP, social media, crowdfunding, whatever, name it, put some buzzwords in there, you're fine. That's the tactical implementation, but the strategy is to create a valuable conversation. The first time we did this, it was in fact for a documentary which we produced in 2009. It was simply a director, Jean-Baptiste Dumont, he came into the office and he said like, I've been conned. I was in the station, someone asked me for some money, and I discovered that this guy has been active across Europe. I want to find him. So what we did is we simply said, like, okay, let's start this search for this con artist, Gary, and we're going to give ourselves 10 weeks, and each week we're going to make 2 episodes to show how the story is progressing. Why 10 weeks? Because that's what the budget allowed us, okay? There was no example out there of what format we had to take, okay?
J'ai été arnaqué. Ça aurait pu être vous, c'est tombé sur moi. Le scénario parfait. Gary. Il dit qu'il s'appelle Gary, qu'il s'est fait voler son portefeuille, qu'il est dans la merde et qu'il a besoin d'argent pour rentrer chez lui en Norvège. Un scénario en béton. Un vrai pro. Je tombe dans le panneau. Mais quand on tape son nom dans Google... Et merde. C'est fascinant. Des tas de personnes sont tombées dans son piège, mot pour mot le même scénario partout en Europe depuis des années. Ce sera peut-être bientôt votre tour. Peut-être l'avez-vous déjà croisé. Qui es-tu, Gary? Pourquoi mettre autant d'intelligence dans un boulot pareil? Pourquoi donnes-tu chaque fois le même nom? Est-ce que tu joues un jeu? Ok, alors je serai ton adversaire. Je me donne 10 semaines pour remonter la piste de ce personnage, reconstituer son histoire en allant rencontrer ses victimes, en étudiant les techniques d'arnaque. Suivez mon enquête en temps réel. Un documentaire interactif auquel vous pouvez vous-même participer en racontant vos propres expériences d'arnaque.
When we started this, we simply did not know where this was going to go. And in the 10th week, we found Gary in Schiphol. And so of this webisodes, we made a 52-minute documentary, which although it's the same content, it's a story from another point of view, because it's in retrospect. And it's more condensed, and there's some new extra elements in there that we didn't want to show live. For example, Gary being threatened, Jean-Baptiste received threats to get killed by someone. So that was an example of the tiger, okay? Anyway, another project we did was Miss Homeless, a no-budget movie, so to speak, labor of love, shot with volunteers, 80 minutes, and you simply know this project is too small to have a traditional distribution, but it's too good not to have, not to get distributed. So why not do something special? So we simply said, okay, we're going to organize our own premiere. So there was the 17th of October, the 20th? Anyway, October 2010, there was the International Day Against Poverty. We did a call to action, organize your own premiere. 53 premieres were organized in 13 countries, and the film was subtitled in 7 languages. We simply threw this English transcription online, and we had all these languages, it was Greek, Croatian, Portuguese, French. So if you have a Lithuanian movie, I mean, this is the way you can have it subtitled in a way. And this is an example of crowdfunding. So you connect your finished movie to the activity of the personal media. Another example that we are working on now is an animation series based on the Baron of Münchhausen, 52 times 13 minutes, but we also designed a game linked to it and a smart TV app. So we really built this universe that a kid can connect to anytime, anywhere, anyhow. That's how we create a bigger value of the IP. And what we also bring into this thing is that we're not starting with an animation series. We're only going to start with the animation series once we have made a couple of games or made a couple of levels, because that way we can test our IP and improve it. So we increase the value by going into a conversation with the audience. Another example is The Spiral. 6 artists steal 6 paintings, 5 times 52 minutes, including 7 countries, whereby we stole the paintings for real. We'll get back to this one in a moment. I want to talk also about the project that we are currently finishing. It's called Cup. It's a movie about a group of scouts that go on a camp in a forest which is full of traps, so they get all killed. 90-minute movie, traditional horror movie. What is innovative about it? How do we create a conversation with the audience? It's like, what are we going to do? So, as I said, traditional movie, co-production between Belgium and the Netherlands, in Dutch, a small language, distribution, international sales by Kinologie. We just started a Facebook page a year ago, and it started to live its own life. So the question was, what are we going to do with it? And so, of course, there's the element of the traps. Just here, one example. Now, you don't have a good pitch when you say, hey, we have a €2.5 million budget. Do you want to pay €25 in crowdfund? I wouldn't be interested. But what we said is like, we're not crowdfunding the movie, we're crowdfunding the traps. So buy a trap, kill a cub. That was a slogan and it worked pretty well. So you could buy different perks from €25 for a wise weasel to fearless fox for €1,000 and lavish line for 10,000. Did we sell a €10,000 credit? I'll show you in a minute. This was our Facebook activity. So you see throughout the small board, we had different peaks, which was like, you know, a popular post, and we promoted it a bit. In total we used $600 to promote our Facebook page. Okay, $600. Sometimes it was stuff directly related to the movie. Sometimes it was just a joke, like, okay, no shoot today, let's go to the forest for a ride, you know. And sometimes we posted this image, and there was very good feedback on it, so now it's like the theme of our further communication. Again, of course, you don't only count on the personal media, a lot of traditional media. And for example, there was one journalist who wrote a 5-page article on the fact that he bought the credit. I think it was the Clever Cobra for $4.99. And so he wrote a very enthusiastic article about it, which helped a lot, because at first, when we started our crowdfunding campaign, we gave ourselves 60 days. This is what it resulted. 60 days Indiegogo, that's their format. We only got up to €8,000. So this was like early May. So we continued during the shoot, and then came the article, and then suddenly we got this email in from different people saying like, we want to do a bigger investment. We negotiated with them because that wasn't just money they gave, but money they invested, so it was including a contract. So by the end of October, we had our €35,000 in place. What is also interesting to see is you see the growth of the video. It's really constant. It's because you are constantly active. It's like this heartbeat. You give a heartbeat to your project, to your community. Now, today we are at about 4,000 followers. Which on its own doesn't seem that much, but to compare, there's now one big Belgian film that was released, and it has 2,000, you know. And we have now 4,000 followers, even though we are like 10 months before the release of the movie. Now, of those 4,000, or back then 3,000, only 95 invested, okay? Most of them invested between 25 and €100. So 70 people of the 95 invested around this amount. The interesting thing is that the international average for a crowdfunding campaign, the international average that people pay for while it's technology or whatever furniture, it's $60, so about €50. That's the psychological trade-off in the sense that it's valuable enough for you who asks for money, and it's not too expensive for the person who gives it. Bear that in mind if you do your own crowdfunding. And then we had 4 people investing quite a high amount. Okay? This shows you something very valuable. It's critical mass. Okay? You need a big community on Facebook, 3,000 followers. Okay? Of those people, only a small group pays. And of that group, only a tiny minority pays a lot. But you would never find those people without these people and without all the others that are following your movie. And that's the participation pyramid, okay? Whatever we do, however we connect the traditional media product to the personal media product, we design it by looking at our project through the participation pyramid, whereby we offer the audience different levels of involvement. So the base is the amount of people, and the higher up you are, the higher your level of involvement, okay? This is key. So we have not yet released the movie, but we have 4,000 followers, of which about 5 to 10% like and share what we publish, because it's just a minority there. We will launch a game at the end of this month, and the next level in September. We already have people that paid. And the people who have paid, they get a ticket to the premiere, and some of them already visited the set. So they were present, physically present with us. Now let's look at the financing plan. is just 1.5% of your financing, okay? So for us, financially speaking, it was just a cherry on the cake. The financing strategy was not based on the personal media. The financing strategy was based on the traditional media, so the mass media, whereby we had our film funds, some own investment, distribution, selling of the rights, and a Belgian tax shelter. By the way, very interesting tax incentive. If you want to co-produce, let me know. So again, what we did here, in fact, is recreate not only 1.5, we not only raised 1.5% of our financing, we raised a lot of awareness. That's where the value lies. The value lies in the fact that the IP is more known, and people in Belgium, in general, people know about that movie with cops being killed with traps, okay? That's the value. And we didn't even have to spend any money on the campaign. Yeah, well, yeah, we spent 600 euros on the crowdfunding on Facebook, but we got 3,500 euros in return. So even though you're making a product for the traditional cinema, still you use the connection with the audience and you create a value. You create a story about your IP, okay? And that's key. You have the story that you are selling and the story you are telling about your IP. In the case of the spiral, which we will look at into detail, this is very different, okay? Because there we did something much more complex. The story about the story was, no, let me put it different. When we do a crowdfunding campaign, when we do what we publish on Facebook, it is us, the people who make the fiction, who communicate with the audience. But what if your fictional characters communicate with the audience? Okay? Then you get something very interesting. It's the suspension of disbelief that you normally only have on your television or on a cinema screen. So, you know, you press play or you enter the cinema, you see redirect, you love the movie, 90 minutes, it's finished. After that, you read an article with the actors or whatever. It's all about the IP. It's all about the story. But what if you could go online and continue to sink into that story universe and build a dialogue with the characters? Well, in this project, it was possible because the story was about 6 artists who steal 6 paintings, and they invite the audience to find the paintings, okay? I'll show you a bit of a trailer here.
Sure. Some may find his work amusing, even thought-provoking.
Media, I don't want everyone to be artists. As in people who do work, their own work.
But over the last 15 years, he has cost sanitation departments and museums around the EU more than 26 million euros. It's been an embarrassment for Europol and local law enforcement for years now.
6 pieces of art. 6 museums. 6 countries. And we're going to steal them.
The Spiral is a 5-part TV series with an all-star European cast.
I'm in.
This crime drama was broadcast simultaneously in Scandinavia, Germany, France, and the Benelux in September 2012.
I'm a cop, not an artist. There's been some robberies. 6.
But the story didn't end with TV. The world extended into the internet and the real world.
Spiral.eu just went live.
6 europäische Museen sind Schauplatz.
On August 21st, 6 world-renowned paintings disappeared from museums across Europe. This real-world story made national news, inviting the audience to search for the missing artwork via the website thespiral.eu.
Hey guys, check this out.
This search would shape The Spiral into the world's most ambitious collaborative artwork, proving that everyone is an artist.
The Spiral.eu just went live 20 seconds ago.
I'm going to cut it a bit short because otherwise we're going to run out of time. And I'll explain more in detail what is in that trailer. Maybe first of all on the financing, 6.5 million euros budget, of which the majority of the financing was from Belgium. And in total, 6 countries were co-producing. So Scandinavia, Benelux, France, and Germany. The source of investment was also interesting. It's like co-production from the broadcasters, combined with local film funds, combined with the Belgian tax shelter. And this was the organigram. So this took about 3.5 years of my life to put together. So you see here the museums that were involved, you see the main broadcasters that were involved, the local production companies, in orange all the different funds, the traditional film crews here, and then here at the bottom, completely new people that were never otherwise involved in production of a TV series or in fiction. These were game designers, social media experts, etc., etc. And in a way, I compare it with your vaudeville theater producer, and suddenly you need a photographer to film the performance. We need to bring in people that speak another language, and I'm not talking the difference between German and Dutch or English. I'm talking about the fact that, you know, development in gaming is what production is in film. So only to find out that that's a different word, that that's the same word means different things, is very interesting. So a steep learning curve. About curves, this is the growth curve of our community. We launched the heist. So the heist, meaning the 6 paintings disappear, started 2 weeks before the TV series. So the spiral.eu, the website where you as an audience could search the paintings, started 2 weeks before, and at that moment we had already a small core community of about 7,000 people. In those 2 weeks, through our communication and presence so on, it went up to 26,000. Then 5 episodes, meaning 4 weeks. By the end we had 140,000 people who played the game. Okay? Now, there are different levels of involvement again, with the highest level being the LARP, live action roleplay. This is in fact for 3 days. We live together in a community, a fake community in Copenhagen, because that's where our main artists, our 6 artists, meet each other. That's why they became friends. So that's the backstory. But instead of using extras to film that, we worked with people who prepared their role for months, and for 3 days they reenacted this art community. And so in fact what you see here, these images are not shot by a professional cameraman, they are shot by one of the participants. This is shot by someone who was a fan of our IP, even before it was, made. So it was about 40 people, including our main cast, some of them like stars in Scandinavia, that certainly are playing as if they are living in a real community. These are bookkeepers, teachers, have no artist background whatsoever, mixed with real artists, and they act as if this is real. It's an incredible thing to do because the interface here is reality, okay? These people have prepared their role for quite some time, and then they step into this fictional world. This was the core of our crew in creating the story universe. And so this opening credit of the series is user-generated content. Now, for the broad audience, the story started on the 21st of August when in the 6 cities, paintings disappeared for real. So the Rubens, Picasso, Munch, they were removed from the museum, and if you went there, you had the spiral here, the logo, and you got additional points, okay, that helped you in the gameplay. And so how did we design this like story universe? We simply asked ourselves, okay, we have the story of the TV series, that's, we know how to create that, but how do we push this suspension of disbelief to other platforms? We simply asked ourselves the question, what if this were real? Well, what if this were real artists? Well, then we would really have the spiral.eu. They would really make this website that didn't have the logo or whatever of the broadcasters because it was part of the fictitious universe. And so, and so if you played it, it was really as if you were, someone who knew these artists. We offered again different levels of involvement, from simple games that were played pretty intensely. The one there was Ping Toss, like 90,000 time plays. But then we, as our artists, they start to challenge people to be creative. And so from that moment on, we're not just generating gameplay, we're generating new content. So, for example, we asked people to make a sandwich that looked like a certain artwork, okay? Minecraft was in there, known online memes, reenact a painting. This one was the most popular, the Coubert. Small things we made ourselves in Flash, Jackson Pollock. Frame your most valuable possession, and mine this cat. We'll get back to her in a moment. And of course, you had indoor things. These you can do just sitting behind your computer. Some were like more challenging. You had to go outside. And also, what is important is it's not an ARG, not an alternate reality game where you have to solve a mystery and go to the next one. It's not like a labyrinth, but it's designed as an ecosystem, a sandbox where you can play any way you want, any way you please. You can be intensely playing the simple online games, or you can just take on some of the more daring challenges. Like, for example, in the series, you see a USB stick. We hit 50 across Europe. They were hidden by the people in the, from the LARP, so who were in the warehouse, so 36 people across Europe. The 50 USB sticks were hidden. The coordinates were put into geocaching, so an existing community. They were all found within 2 weeks. Then we had some other stuff. We did, of course, in the warehouse already examples of the challenges we then gave to the broader audience. You know, and some people interpreted outdoor challenges in an indoor context. In total, within the 6 weeks of runtime, we had 20,000 uploads of pictures. Now, it's not as if, oh, we have a TV series and we have a game and, you know, enjoy yourselves. No, there was a connection. On the 29th of August, this picture, the cat, was uploaded.
Listen to this.
And this is 10 days later, broadcast across 7 countries. Now,
and then there's a picture of a cat in a frame. And it says, I framed my cat because she's the most valuable thing I have.
Oh, really? Oh, that's amazing.
Okay, you know, if you watch the TV series and you don't play the game, you just, yeah, okay, they're watching their thing and off we go to the next scene. If you've played the game, you've seen that cat being uploaded. You might be, the girl was a girl who uploaded. She's like, what, my cat that's up in the TV series? What we did is when we were writing the script was like, okay, they're watching one of their challenges, what are we going to do there? Well, frame your most valuable possession. What are they going to frame? A cat, okay? You know, everyone knows the internet became big because of porn and cats. So, and in fact, when we launched it, 1 dog, 5 cats, and 100 other kind of things. Anyway, that's how we designed it. When we shot it, there was a cat in there that was our cat, a produced cat by the by the mass media. There was some trainee that arranged the cat, and she put it there. This is a cat from someone somewhere, I don't even remember, but this is a cat created by Mira Ellen, who, I don't know, probably lives somewhere in Scandinavia. Anyway, this is how personal media stuff ended up in the mass media, and also the other way around.
Okay.
I see I'm running a bit out of time, so I'm going to push a bit forward. But here, Oscar, one of the characters, brings bad news. He says Arturo is dead.
Victor. He's dead.
Okay.
What?
This was on... Victor was also Arturo. Arturo is the leader of the gang. He died, and the community that was active online already knew this a couple of days earlier. They didn't know exactly what happened, but there was already a wake. You know, people put flowers in front of the hospital. This was like a couple of months after the death of Steve Jobs, so we mimicked that. There was a wake for him. The actors were there. The participants were there. Online, there were comments. People speculated on who killed him. There was this strange character, Malevich, popping up. We had something like Beatrice. And then there was one artist that suddenly disappeared online. And so the police, of course, is also investigating into these things that you as an audience can find online. The police is looking into it.
An opening he's having. Apparently it's a sculpture.
So what you are consuming as an audience is also what the police is investigating. And so, again, you see over there the game. So some of the cat stuff also ended up in there. You see the path of the paintings, etc., etc. So you see, again, there's this feedback loop in this whole pyramid. The highest level of involvement was the LARP, live-action roleplay, to, you know, someone uploading a cat, to someone just playing some simple games or searching the paintings, okay? it was this whole vast world. There was a fiction in story as if it was real, and on top of that there was this out story guidance by the broadcasters to explain how the story worked, what was happening, the cool stuff, etc., etc. Twitter channel, of course, and so on. The thing is, I think, is we focused so much on the in-story that we didn't communicate enough about the story. That was the biggest thing we learned. As this, you need to consider that this was like a prototype of how can we tell a story on such a big scale. And I think our lesson was that we started to build our fiction universe very early, but started to communicate about the story very late. We should have done that much earlier, and that way it would have helped to increase our audience like we are doing now. So we learned from those mistakes from the past and are implementing today in new content. And so these are some of the numbers. I'm going to script you a bit quick. So you see that the story arc for the TV series is find the murderer, and the story arc for the game and the community is find the paintings, return the paintings, and bring the bad guys to justice. 5% of the passive audience watched the TV series. And at the end, the paintings were brought back to the museums. Okay, it was like the closing event. So in front of, I'm going to skip to it a bit quicker. In front of each museum, the people were placing the paintings back. It was streamed live between all the different cities. And over the weekend, and the main event was in front of the European Parliament. So that was Friday evening, 28th of September. People who found the paintings brought it back. Live events. The 30th of September, so 48 hours later, we inserted it into the TV series. And so when you watched it on TV, you saw the real people who won the game 2 days earlier appear on TV. So what we did there, and this is really the first time in history, in TV history, that this happened, because normally you finish your fiction product weeks in advance, months in advance, and you can't change it. We changed it by involving, by connecting with the audience. So we really succeeded in connecting that personal media and that mass media. And that was our ambition. So I would say, really think about this paradigm shift. This is Facebook 10 years ago. Okay, this is Facebook today. So the question is, where is your story going to be? Is it going to be connected or not? Okay, thank you.